Good evening, my blessed brothers and sisters in Christ, and my friends all over the Philadelphia and tri state area. Also, to my family and friends back home in Pittsburgh and the vicinity, greetings. I just wanted to call to tell you tonight we have some special guests on PK's Talkback. They are the core workers, basically, of a new group that was begun called PK's Talkback. It is the original group that is concerned with addressing issues that are unique, in particular, to pastors and preachers' kids. And so, if you get a chance, come by and check us out at Prince of Peace Church Philly, and hey, share with us and some of the things that they have to say about the struggles and the challenges of children who grow up in pastors' families. That's the first thing that I want to mention to you, and that's at 7 o'clock p.m., which is about 20 minutes away from now. The other thing that I want to mention to you is something that I think is really near and dear. I'm hoping that whoever hears this will pass it on to your family members, to other folks, and it regards voting, basically. We're in a real serious time, and I know that rhetoric is always used with respect to trying to convince us as to how serious a particular problem is or a particular year is for voting. But I do want to tell you that this year is extremely important for us, not just because not because it's Republican against Democrat and the philosophies are at stake. What's at stake this year, really, I believe this, is whether we are going to have a country that exists in the way that it should function or not. Here's my core statement, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot have a better democracy if you do not have a democracy. Can I say that again? I'll risk being redundant here. You cannot have a better democracy if you do not have a democracy. At the outset, look, it's your business who you vote for. But I am going to say to those of you who are in between and angry and frustrated, and you feel that at least you may vote, but you won't vote for either candidate. In this election, to do so really is a vote for whatever side you do not want to win. In our case, a vote for Trump. A vote that's not for Biden is a vote for Trump. A vote for Trump is, or for another third party is not a vote for Trump himself. Look, you can vote independent or write-in or whatever else you want. This is not a time for symbolic gestures. We need people to vote particularly. We can fix a democracy if we have a democracy. We can keep working toward progress if we have something already on the table. I want to give you a couple of things to consider. I kind of like history, and I was on the website for the Holocaust, U.S. Holocaust Museum, and I come across this explanation of fascism. Let me tell you what that is. For those of you who don't know, I don't want to lecture you, but for those who don't know what fascism is, it is an extreme and exclusionary nationalism. That is, that fascism is an extreme, emotionally extreme movement that hopes to exclude others from importance in whether it's national or international conversation. Nationalism is a form of patriotism, is an extreme form of patriotism marked by a feeling of superiority over other countries and over other peoples as we're hearing certain language used in this country. Let me give you an example. If fascism is an extreme and exclusive club or exclusionary form of nationalism, then we've got to think of what Mr. Trump is talking about when he talks about MAGA. Emphasis on MAGA as an exclusive Americanism. Another thing is that fascism is a fixation or has a fixation on national decline. Whether that decline is real or perceived, fascism emphasizes that the nation is declined and threatens and fascism fixation threatens the existence of the national diverse community. Mr. Trump sees, for example, America as fallen, and he sees himself as the only one that can save it. He said in his own speeches, "I alone can do it. I alone can save it." Another thing about fascism is that it embraces paramilitarism or militarism. And Mr. Trump coddles paramilitary groups. Think about it. In Charlottesville, in Michigan, as they invaded the state capitol with AK-47s and AR rifles, he coddles military groups. And another example is what he did when he moved out peaceful protesters near the Capitol in Washington, D.C. Fascism embraces militarism as the answer pretty much for everything. It looks for a strict adherence to the one who is at the top. Also, fascists define the national will as advancing the interest of the national community. That is, whatever or whoever the fascist thinker views as our community, our country, he fashions the will, or they fashion the will and advancing interest of the country after their mindset. Mr. Trump believes himself not to be above the law, but to actually be the law. He said that on news reports and interviews. Fascism protects or elevates the rights of the national group, whatever group they see as the Americans, for example, above the rights of those seen as aliens. So when we talk about when he talks about and others talk about with them that we're going to make our country great, he's not talking about people of color like you and me. He's not talking about other ethnic groups. He's talking about a particular racial look and group, just as Adolf Hitler was talking about the Aryans in Germany. Mr. Trump protects explicitly and implicitly the rights of those people that he sees as a part of our country motto. And he disparages those with roots in other countries. All I'm trying to say to you is that this is not just about Democrat or Republican at this point as a party. This is really about whether our country will keep going in the direction of fascism, or if we will hold on to the democracy with all of its flaws and make it better from the inside. None of us can really say that things are no better today than they were yesterday. They are. They are. When you really take a look at it, there are some things that we really need to work on, no question. And I'm with you all the way on that. But we cannot simply say that things are the same as they were before 1863 and ending supposedly in 1865. Another thing, fascism removes obstacles to national unity and suppresses those people who are seen as challenging the idea of their model for national unity. National unity is not important to a fascist. Race is important to a fascist only the welfare of that race. Also, I wanted to mention in connection with that, fascism destabilizes the nation's government and calls for the prosecution of those who oppose the idea that is represented by the leader of that group. Think about this right now. We have a president who is calling for the prosecution of anybody who has stood against him politically. That's a fascist tactic. And finally, let me say two more things. Fascism works on expanding the size and influence of the national state. That is, it gathers this racial group, it makes them magnified or works to make them larger, and it seeks to advance the grab of their influence and territory through armed conflict. And I want to mention to you that right now, the president that's currently in office accrues to himself the powers that were constitutionally delegated to co-equal branches of government and subjugates those branches to himself. Nobody has a right in his mind to rule but him. Whatever he tells the Senate, which is a co-equal branch of government with the presidency, whatever he tells the House, the House, whatever he tells them is what he believes should be done. And so I wanted to take a minute to talk with you because I think that we're in an unprecedented era. We've always had major arguments about who was right, Democrat or Republican. We've always had the argument about abortion, about violence, about LGBTQ rights. We've always had those arguments. And we can continue to have those arguments and work out our particular problems if we have a democracy. But if we continue to drift toward fascism, which calls for the crowning of one group of people and the promotion of their superiority over everybody else, then we don't have a democracy at all. And all of us are subject to wound and hurt and subjugation. And so I want to say to you, whatever you're thinking, those of you who are 45 and under, I want to say this to you. Don't make the mistake of thinking that this is time for symbolic protest. You will not have that right to protest if we are overtaken by a fascist ideology. You will not have that, and you know that. You're far more intelligent than I. You know that. You will not have that right. Now is not the time for a symbolic voting gesture. 8 years ago, 12 years ago, we were in a battle for ideas. In 2020, our election is about the structure of the nation governmentally, and it's about the integrity and whether this nation will continue to make any progress toward fairness and equality for all people in this country. Whatever our disagreements are, my brothers and sisters, do not hide your vote by calling yourself writing in or voting for an independent, because that will be a vote against yourself. And so I urge you, find your way to the polls and vote for the candidate that you think will best take us into the future, be able to listen to us, to help us work through our problems, be able to resolve our anxieties and conflicts, whether it's with one another or with others overseas. You vote for the person that you think will be best. But for God's sake, do not squander your opportunity to make this nation maintain its structural integrity. We have something to build on. Tomorrow we may not. God bless you. Thank you for taking this time to listen. I've been on for about 15 minutes. It's over my time. God bless. Thanks. Stay tuned for PK's Talkback coming on Zoom, but it'll be blasted out to Facebook Live. God bless. Love you.